As ever, the Vuelta a Espana rounds up the Grand Tour calendar. The Spanish race is one of the less predictable events of the year, with the fatigue of a season's racing in the legs. Speaking of fatigue, defending champion Nairo Quintana will not be back this year after riding the Giro and the Tour already this season. Even without Quintana, there will be plenty of GC talent on show on this mountainous course. Here are Cycling News' 10 riders to watch for the Vuelta a Espana. Alberto Contador confirmed that this year's Vuelta a Espana would be the final race of his illustrious career. Contador's career has been one of big highs and lows, and many of the highs have come in his home Grand Tour. The Spaniard has won the event 3 times and finished 4th in his most recent effort last season. Contador had hinted that he'd continue into next year, but a disappointing showing at the Tour de France has possibly helped him make his decision. What he can achieve is unknown, but we can expect him to go out all guns blazing. After winning his 4th Tour de France title, Froome is determined to add the Vuelta a Espana to his palmarès. Froome has always gone well at the Vuelta, but has not quite had enough to make it to the top step. In 5 previous appearances, Froome's had 1 DNF, a 4th place and 3 runners-up spots. He rode a much less intense first part of the season in order to keep something in reserve for the Vuelta. He was not as strong as previous years at the Tour, but perhaps that will pay dividends later this month. Fabio Aru returned to the Vuelta a Espana for the first time since winning it in 2015. Aru's calendar had to be reshuffled due to a knee injury he picked up in a training crash ahead of the Giro d'Italia, but the Vuelta has always been on his programme. He's not raced since the Tour de France last month, where he had a stage win, a stint in yellow and finished 5th overall, despite flagging in the final week due to illness. The lengthy time trial will be his biggest hurdle. Vincenzo Nibali is the 3rd former winner due to line up on August 19th in Nîmes. Like Aru, the Vuelta was the first Grand Tour victory for Nibali, winning it back in 2010. 3 further appearances have brought him a 7th, 2nd and disqualification for hanging on to the team car. Nibali hasn't been back since that ignominious exit in 2015 and will be hoping for some better fortune. He's already notched up a Grand Tour podium this season with 3rd at the Giro and returned to racing with a quiet Tour de Pologne earlier this month. The 2017 Vuelta will be Romain Bardet's first tilt at the Spanish Grand Tour. Since turning professional in 2012, Bardet's only Grand Tour has been his native Tour de France. So, not only will it be his first Vuelta experience, it's the first time he's ridden 2 3-week races in the same season. How he'll cope with the additional workload remains to be seen, but the Vuelta's style of racing is one that suits him. If he's in form, then the unpredictability should allow him to flourish. Both Yates brothers are on orica-scott's Vuelta a Espana lineup, and either could put in a decent showing, but we picked Adam as one to watch. Unlike his brother, Adam's had a break over the summer after finishing 9th overall at the Giro d'Italia. He's recently ridden the Tour de Pologne, where he took 5th and finished runner-up to Wout Poels on the final stage. He's not ridden the Vuelta a Espana since his Grand Tour debut in 2014. There'll be a lot more expectation this time around, but a top 10 or a podium could be on the cards. Warren Barguil has had a huge season so far with a brilliant Tour de France that resulted in 2 stage wins, the mountains classification and a 10th place finish. Wilco Kelderman is said to be the general classification leader for the Sunweb team, but with that form there's little doubt that Barguil will get some sort of protected status. The Vuelta was the scene of many of Barguil's early career successes, with 2 stage wins in 2013 and 8th overall the following year. He enlivened the Tour, so he is hoping he can do the same at the Vuelta. David de la Cruz has not had a lot of luck at Grand Tours, abandoning 4 of the 6 that he started, but last year brought a breakthrough with 7th at the Vuelta. After a strong start to the season with wins at Paris-Nice and País Vasco, his season was disrupted by a bout of pneumonia in May. Bit by bit he's come back into form and finished 3rd overall at the Vuelta a Burgos earlier this month. His teammate Enrique Mas will also be interesting to watch, but how he fares over 3 weeks is yet to be seen. Ilno Zakarin is another rider making his debut at the Vuelta a Espana this season, as he looks set to lead the Katusha team. Zakarin finished 5th at the Giro d'Italia earlier this year, a position he was on course to take in 2016, before he crashed heavily on the descent of the Colle dell'Agnello. As Grand Tour contenders go, Zakharin is good at time trialling. He won the Russian National Time Trial Championships earlier this year, and the inclusion of a 40-kilometre test will be music to his ears. Completing this lineup is last year's third-place rider Esteban Chavez. The Colombian's had a difficult year, marked by injury and personal problems, and the Vuelta a Espana is a chance to end it with a highlight. An early season knee injury meant that his long-awaited Tour de France didn't turn out how many expected. He showed his doggedness though and made it all the way to Paris, giving him some much-needed hard miles. The first major test of his form will be the Stage 3 finish in Andorra, where he and the team will be able to gauge where he's at ahead of the sterner tests later on.